Well, we're excited today. I know that, we spent a lot of time last year when we all have big picture visions and goals. I know we spent so much of our year refocusing, pivoting, changing, adapting to the times. That has really served us well, obviously, to keep moving forward. And no doubt that will continue to be probably a skill that we will practice in 2021. But we wanted to give you kind of something to think, some top 10 to think about as far as strategies and ideas to launch early in 2021 to make sure we've all got specific and tangible tasks so we can be efficient and effective with our time. Again, have those small but achievable goals. And one of the things I'm really trying to focus on just in life in general that I think will serve us all well is being intentional in an effort to create habits so that we don't just say, yeah, I know I should do that, but I'll get to it at some point. So with that, I just want to go ahead and kick off with Jake and I put together our list of suggestions, and we're going to do a top 10 countdown going back and forth. So starting with number 10, reach out to your large and consistent supporters early and let them know about your 2021 plans. I think taking your 5 to 10 biggest donors, your 5 to 10 most consistent donors, and maybe even some of those donors that you're like, gosh, I have just not connected with them and I'm almost embarrassed to call them at this point because it's been so long. Adding a couple of them in as well. I think when we're stretched a little bit past our comfort zone, that's when the magic happens, right? That's when you like pick up the phone and you're like, oh, they're gonna crush me. I haven't given them an update. I'm so scared to even talk to them because I should have talked to them a year ago. And how did this year just pass by? And you pick up that phone and they're so happy to hear from you. They're one of the first to know something. I think I just want to urge each of you to make a list. It doesn't have to be more than 10 people. Let's make it an achievable list. 10 people that you reach out to. And again, just look at, who are those biggest, who are those people that are coming up for a, potential new renewal, a new pledge, a new ask. Who are those people you just haven't talked to? Nothing like saying, Happy New Year. Last year was crazy. Here are our plans for 2021. And I just thought of you and wanted you to know. Just have a real conversation. And if you can put that on your calendar, mark it on your calendar, one a day for, the next 10 work days you have, you're going to feel really, really energized and good moving into 2021. So next, Jake.
All right. The next thing that we would highly encourage you to try to do as much as you can, which is one of the hardest things right now and was one of the hardest things last year, was to get more people involved. We know that development staffs are forever understaffed. You always have way more hours of work than you do hours of time, even if you have more than one person on your team. And obviously the best way to solve that is with volunteers, is to increase your volunteers. If you haven't finished out recruiting your chairs, filling out your committees, to begin to work on that, because we know that will pay dividends. If we can put in a little bit of time here in the beginning of the year, the rest of your 2021 will be so much easier when you have this very even pipeline of new prospects, of contacts, of people to call, of people who care about your cause and your mission and are working on your team with you. It's work, it's hard. It's in the beginning, it's something that we don't necessarily gravitate towards or are always really excited about doing, because you get a lot of no's and it's a hard ask. Asking for money is one thing, but asking for time, the thing that we're all allotted the same amount of, is even more meaningful. So it's difficult to do, but to look to build out those committees if you haven't, and if you feel plateaued and say you have had robust success with your committees, look to find some new faces, people who may not have been involved before, saying, our special gifts team has been kind of lulling. We got 6 kind of sort of people who are participating, and we've got 2 that don't really show up. It's like, well, great. Who can we add? Maybe at our next meeting, we talk about, okay, I really want to look at adding 2 or 3 new faces and getting some new excitement and new energy in the room. But just getting more people involved, again, a little bit of an investment right here up front. But as we get into the summer and the later part of the year, this will make your back half of 2021, as we get out of COVID and get out of the pandemic, that much better, that much easier, and it'll set you ahead of all the other nonprofits who are not doing this. All right, number 8.
Okay, ensure your web presence is current and that online gift making is simple with as few clicks as possible. And then I kind of added on to implement a recurring gift strategy for annual gifts. So we know virtual is going to be here to stay regardless of what level moving into the future. We hope that we will be in more face-to-face meetings moving forward, but people have caught on to virtual meetings, have spent more time on their technology. They're going to be quick technology clicks that they need to. We're consuming information like that, and that's going to continue regardless of what happens. So if we have not already spent time on making sure that we have a current web presence, so that it's something that once you decide you want to do something, with social media and push it out to people, that it's current, it's relevant, it's real right now. It's not something you created 5 years ago. We want to make sure that it's current, and we want to make sure that it's simple. Like I said, to have a bit of information about your project, have it really clear where you click, how you make a gift, keeping in mind that most online gifts are going to be annual gifts club level or smaller, right? So focusing heavily on that. And a few forums ago, several months ago, we focused on recurring gifts. And that is a way, right? People do subscriptions, they do things where they don't have to think about it. And by making it easy, making a default to have a recurring gift option on your site in an easy way is going to enable and empower your volunteers to connect back to that. It's going to enable you to send a quick message. Hey, here's a simple way to sign up. Join us today. And so making that easy is a key. So if you have not done an assessment of your websites and your connectivity online in the virtual world, it would be a really great time to do that. All right, number 7.
Number 7. The next is to, again, do the hardest thing in COVID right now, which is focus on meaningful and consistent communication. And not to say, okay, I'm going to talk to every donor this week and then every donor next week, and be a little bit realistic about the levels at which you're taking this on, but try to schedule it into your week and make a goal saying, I'm going to make 1 new contact per week, or I'm going to contact 3 to 5 volunteers this week, and then again that next week, either setting aside time or just putting it on your to-do list and saying, I'm going to block time every week to make sure I at least get 1. Start with 1. If you think, oh, this is going to be tremendously difficult, or this is going to be a lot of work, okay, start with 1. And if you feel like you're successful after a couple of weeks, put it up to 2 and 3. But a lot of times in the beginning of the year, we get kind of caught up in this like planning, and we're figuring this out, and it's going to be like this eventually. It's like, well, what can I do this first week of January, the second week of January, to just get 1 contact, 1 phone call? We know that over time that will make a huge difference in what we're able to return. It's law of numbers. We can just get enough out there and enough contacts out there, enough connection. People want to hear from us, and they're excited to hear from us, like Marty said. And the more we can do this just a little bit, even if it's over the phone, increases your volunteer engagement tremendously, and will get them thinking about you and working for you on your behalf. That 15-minute call with that 1 volunteer may yield 2, 3, 4 hours of work from that volunteer. So in terms of your time invested in versus the time you get back out of it towards your mission, it's unbelievable. It's a tremendous help. So, number 6.
Thank you, Jake. And I'm going to actually pause for 1 second. Thank you for using the chat for a question. Faye, I'm going to address your question. Just a reminder, since I didn't mention that yet in this forum, to please feel free to pop questions in that chat box up in the top right corner. We're happy to address them as we go, or at the end if more appropriate. But Faye's question was, how is number 1, the outreach to the top supporters, different than maybe any other outreach that we've already done? Just a clarification there. That's a purely, hey, this is what's going on, you're important to us. That is more of a stewardship call. That is a thank you for your past support. You're so important to us. Wanted you to be one of the first people we call to let you know what's on our agenda for 2021. Really appreciate your support. Do you have any questions for me? Anything I can answer for you? Just to really create that 2-way dialogue, not a mailing, not an email, of picking up the phone, that conversation with them and letting them feel like they are totally in that important, as they are, that important inner circle of your organization. So wonderful question. I'm happy to clarify anything else as we move forward. So again, thanks for using that chat box there, Faye. All right, on to number 6. Make an effort to connect with employees throughout your organization. Expand your employee engagement team and your employee recognition efforts. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this one right now because this is our entire topic for next week's forum. So I'm just going to do a little plug for next Friday. We are actually asking that everyone join us on that call who is having any sort of challenge with their employee engagement and employee giving programs. It has been a hot topic the last couple of months, especially the last couple of weeks. We all know that employee giving and the bigger picture of engagement overall for our organizations is so key and important to furthering philanthropy and that culture of philanthropy, and of course, very important gifts as well. So, there has been a challenge with having limited new employee orientations, having virtual ones, cutting our efforts out of the quick little bites of information that new employees are getting, and just overall connecting with people, right? Like for those of us with large organizations, and even those of us with smaller organizations, we are confined to our office a lot of the time. They don't want us walking the halls of a hospital. They don't want us going around and possibly spreading, right? So we need to make sure that we are being thoughtful with our process of connecting with those people internally in our organizations who can help us not only from a financial contribution perspective, but from connecting us to potential donors, and really making them feel like they're still a part of our family and a part of our team. So again, the refocus of more on engagement and getting them involved is our main topic for next week. So I'm just going to close this number with saying, be thinking about what you are currently doing in this area, because we're going to have an interactive session where hopefully everyone can give us just a little snippet of what they're doing. And guess what? The answer can be actually really nothing. Like, it's a safe place. And if you're not doing something, that's a great starting point. Okay. It's fine. You don't have to feel like you have to put together all this stuff in this next week to talk about, because we understand that it has sometimes been backburnered because of the challenges. So we're trying to help you navigate that. Additionally, we would like for you to put together some specific questions you may have, not only for us, the Pride team, but for your colleagues, everyone else on the call. And so I'm actually happy to take those questions via email, so that I can start to help prepare that as well. But you can bring them to the call if that works best. But if y'all can come up with a few questions for us, that will be wonderful. So employees connecting internally will be key. So keep that on your list. Number 5.
All right, next one. The next is to try to, as much as you can, align your fundraising goals with kind of the overall goals, strategic planning of the organization, to make sure that you're very much in line with what the plan for 2021 is for your entire nonprofit as a whole. Obviously, if we had a 3 to 5 year strategic plan and COVID was right in the middle of it, we may have, to use everyone's least favorite word, pivoted as an organization in terms of what we're offering, what our plan is, what we're doing. And as if we're making those changes and they're changing, ever constantly, we want to make sure that the fundraising is right in line with that. So just a couple questions to ask yourself about this is the organization expanding? Are we just hanging on? Are we trying to survive? Are we trying to offer new services to our community? And to make sure that we're thinking about philanthropy in the context of those questions as well. We could have had this awesome campaign that we were 2/3 of the way through, but now the organization is focusing on these other things that we weren't a year ago, and we're still pushing to the end of this, and then we kind of feel lost by the end. So let's make sure that we're being aware of what the organization wants and needs as a whole, and that our philanthropy supports that, and that we're communicating that to our constituency, to our donors, to our volunteers, and everybody else to make sure that we're aligned. We have a little bit of time here right in the beginning of the year to think through those things and what are my 2021 goals, and just to make sure that that gets in the mix as well as we move forward. Number 4.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, y'all. Do not revive that fundraising event. It was probably costing you money, and it can be converted into another recognition event or removed altogether. We know that the return on investment for a fundraiser event is so small in comparison to everything else that we do. And now that you have been given this blessing of pausing an event or repurposing or focusing it, making it something that might better serve your overall fundraising goals, now is the time to confidently show our time can better be spent by focusing on building relationships with major donors, looking for new people to get involved with the organization. We know that you can connect personally, individually with the right people in your community and focus on major gifts and have so much of a greater return on your investment. Now, we know that people are social. People, especially when we can gather again more freely, people still like to be able to connect socially. And so it's important to recognize that and acknowledge that. But that's why we suggest having recognition events where we are just saying thank you. So if you feel that you have to still have the event because that's the expectation in your community, there is no better time than now to repurpose that to something that much more serves your needs. Do not revive the fundraiser events. Okay, on to number 3. I'll get off my soapbox.
All right. The next thing is to not forget about our consistent and current donors that we very, very much want to keep. We know recognition is always an important part of every program. We kind of learn this inherently going into the field of fundraising, the field of philanthropy. People talk about it all the time. You read blogs about it on LinkedIn, all the stuff. But to actually go through and do it and look at, I know it's going to be way cheaper and way easier to go through and keep my existing donors happy and giving than it is to try to find new people in the community. So people talk about, oh, donor burnout. That's fine. We do want to be able to go back to these people, but we want the time in between we approach people for gifts to be as wide as possible. And in between, it's nothing but thank you and you're awesome. So that they get used to the fact that every time they hear from us, they're really excited. Like, oh my gosh, every time Jake calls, it's just for him to tell me how great I am and how much of an impact my gift had. And I'm just so used to that very thankful, very positive interaction that in 12 months, 18 months down the road, when he asked me to re-up my pledge, it's an easy conversation. I'll always take the call. I'm excited to listen. He's kept me informed about how my gift is being used all the way through. The only way to actually ensure that you're doing this properly for all your donors, because if you have a lot, or even if you have a few, it can get complicated. Did I send them a thank you note? Did I call? How many times have I called? Have I checked in them since Thanksgiving? What have I been doing? But to make a little calendar, make a little tracking sheet, and we have a template for this if you don't have one already, but it's as simple as an Excel grid. I mean, you don't have to do anything fancy. You can do it on Google Sheets. And just to make sure that you get about 6 or 7 meaningful touches a year. Meaningful touch is not a mass email. A meaningful touch is like a handwritten note or just a quick 10-minute phone call or checking in with them on a recognition event or a regular event, but something that is personal and interactive, and to spread those out appropriately throughout the year. And you say, well, I have too many donors, I can't do that for all of them. That's okay. Start with your big and important donors and go down from there. And hopefully eventually you can get to everybody, but at least start with the ones who are very, very consistently supporting your mission and have that tracking sheet in place saying, okay, here are all my donors who have been great, who have been very supportive. Here are my new donors I got through the COVID relief campaign or whatever we did. And here is how I'm going to approach all of my. I'm going to take my top 25, my top 50, whatever I can do, and I'm going to spread out 7 meaningful interactions throughout the year, and then it becomes so much more manageable. Then you got a couple a week here and there, you're writing occasional notes, you're calling occasionally, but it's not just this big chore of like, oh, I've got to keep up with recognition. I barely can have time to look out for new donors. I got this project coming up. How can I fit this into my schedule? To spread it out evenly and to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself with a tremendous amount of work that you'll just end up putting off, and then suddenly it's June and your donors haven't heard from you. So to really just put that on a calendar, be very, very honest and realistic with yourself about your time commitment and how long it takes to do these things. Strategize about different types and kind of keeping them at an even, maybe every 1 to 3 months or so with each donor. And then you'll find that when you go back to those donors in December or next January for that new pledge, they're just really excited about it. And it's an easy yes without having done that much work. And it's fun. You get to keep up with the people who matter most to you and you matter most to them. So it's really a great thing all the way across. But just don't neglect maybe setting up a little tracking sheet and really sticking to it for 2021. Number 2.
Yeah, that's where the fun lies, guys, right? There's nothing better than making somebody's day. Just think of it that way. Every day I'm going to make somebody's day. I'm going to say thank you, you're awesome. I love it. Okay, number 2, reach out to your large and consistent supporters. Prioritize making a top 25 major gift prospect list. Do a rating session with your volunteers. Assign out specific people or yourself to make cultivation calls now and let them know of your plans. So we want to have that top 25 major gift prospect list, a living, breathing document. Hopefully, you are moving people off of that because they're making commitments, and you are adding new people onto that as you are continuing to brainstorm. We should be reassessing this top 25 list, if not weekly, at least monthly, and engaging and involving our volunteers in the process. We know that small, achievable goals, one person at a time in this fundraising business of person to person interaction, is how we will get there. And by focusing on the major gifts first and foremost, we will get much closer to our goals more quickly. So a top 25 list, y'all, that is something we should all be able to achieve, regardless of how big or small our community or our geographical region that we're serving is. A top 25 list. Don't make it bigger than that, though. You can have a next tier that you put them there, and you kind of put them in the parking lot until you get ready to move them back onto that 25. But if you keep that 25, it's people whose names you can remember, it's information about them that you can remember. That is an achievable number to keep it fresh and current. And go ahead and get that cultivation process started with each of them in some way, shape, or form by utilizing your volunteers sooner than later. In this first quarter, you should make it a goal to be getting that ball in motion. No time like the present. Top 25 major gift prospect lists. And the number one.
The number one thing to make sure that you do every day or every week, if you could pick nothing else away from today and do it for 2021, is to schedule some amount of time, even if it's 10 minutes and one phone call or 5 minutes and just checking your prospect list, but to spend every single day some kind of focus on major gifts. And that could be solicitation, cultivation, or stewardship, some kind of something with that. But we know that far and away, this yields better revenue than literally everything we do combined. And just to not let it go by the wayside because it's not always the most comfortable thing that we do. Our tendency is like, oh, I got to get these 6 things done. I'll focus on major gifts. It's not urgent. It's not urgent right now. But when we get to about October and we're here on our goal and we need to be here, then suddenly it is urgent. So to sit down every single day and say, okay, I know I don't have any standing meetings at 10 o'clock every single day. So from 10 to 10:30, I'm going to think about or make progress towards or check up on or do something towards the effort of all of my major gifts efforts, all of my major donors, my major prospects, anything that will yield those big gifts and will benefit what our community does, what our charity does, what our nonprofit does. We have a mission, we're fulfilling that mission, and this is the number one thing that I can do every single day to help support that mission. This is the most important thing that I do. And just to remind yourself of that, it's not big or scary or a big challenge, but to say just be realistic. Like, we know that this is the most important thing that we do, so we're going to prioritize it. It's not the most fun or the easiest thing always, but we are going to put it on the list. And if I do nothing else, and in a day, I called that one prospect just to check in on them. I sent a message to somebody to see if I can set up a meeting with this other prospect. I did a little bit of research on this person to see if they might be a candidate for a $50,000 gift. One little thing. So you get to the end of the day and you go, man, I feel like I was in a lot of meetings. I did a lot of stuff today, but oh yeah, I did work on major gifts like I do every day, and it was productive, and I took a step forward, and getting through 52 weeks of a little step forward is going to yield really, really big results in 2021.
There you have it, y'all. We all get bogged down in stuff every single day. So hopefully this top 10 list will enable each of you to take a few nuggets, get them on your calendar, commit to it, be intentional in your efforts, and will yield results this year.